Welcome to the Artist Spotlight for Run Radio. I'm Trina Wilcox, and today Phil Marinucci from Phil Marinucci Multimedia joins me today. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you. How
How
are
are you
you?
doing?
I'm good.
Good, good. So you've got a lot of things on your bio here that you do. You're a busy person.
Yeah, I'm aside from the music stuff that you've seen, I'm a multimedia guy. That's pretty much what I do for a living,
Okay,
right?
so have you been doing this your whole life, or have you had a path that kind of has just intertwined it?
Yeah, pretty much my whole life. It started out like I've always been involved in the arts, right? But
Okay.
I've also been involved in computers and business, and so multimedia is kind of a mesh
Mhm.
of all those things. That's always been the case. You start out in the corporate world and then you kind of advance from there. So you've probably seen the website and all the things that's the fun part about the job, right? You can get involved in all kinds of different projects, and learn all kinds of things, and you just keep going. It's not something that you never get bored with.
So what's your process kind of like?
um well, generally speaking, like I run a basically agency, right?
Okay.
So running an agency, so I have clients, and that particular process is just they contact me, they need work done, and I get it done. So it all depends on what they're looking for.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the single fly and how that even came about and how music has grown and developed for you through the years.
Okay, so Fly is it's a bit of a long story. Again, like based on the question that you asked earlier, I was involved with this kind of stuff all my life. So I was a teenager, and I was involved in art and music writing and game development and computers and all kinds of fun stuff. So this track was something that I wrote back then. I wrote a number of them actually, but this was the one that I'd liked the best. But back then, you got to remember, you're talking late '80s. There were no Macs, there was no equipment, there was no technology to do this kind of thing, right? Or the Macs that were there couldn't do what we can do today. Put it that way. So it was something that I just kind of put on the back burner, but it was a song that was always in the back of my mind. It was just because it was something that was I was listening to AOR music back then, so you're talking like Journey in Asia and Foreigner and all these great groups, and I wanted to write something like that, but I couldn't do anything with it, so I just kind of put it aside. And then it was during the pandemic that I realized that you suddenly have more time on your hands. You're doing your work, but you're stuck at home. And so I thought, okay. I looked around and said, I've got the equipment to do this now, and I've got the time. So I figured I'd give it a try. The interesting thing about, if you heard the single, the beginning, it has that guitar intro, right? And so that was one of the first things I worked on. Was when I started working on it, I said, okay, I'm going to try, and I put it together. And I heard that intro, I said, that's it. I have to finish this track.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it happened. And then I had no idea it was going to take so long. It took
Mm.
almost 2 years to finish it,
Oh,
just
wow.
because it was just me. It's not like I had a band. I had to do all the instruments myself. I had to do all the arrangements myself. Plus, I have to work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Right. So there was all these things. So it took time. And
yeah.
then as I was starting this, I realized it's like I wanted to keep it in the style that it was originally created in. So it was written in the '80s. So I wanted to keep that sound, right? And even if it was originally, it was just supposed to be a pet project. But then
Hmm.
as it was developing, I said, okay, this is kind of working. And then when I let people hear it, the first thing that they were entertained by was the story that I'm telling you now. And the fact that here it was this track kind of time traveled from
Hmm.
then to now. And it's basically a new '80s track.
Yeah. And it's great. I love the sound. The vocals sound great. I'm assuming those are your vocals
Those are
too.
mine. Thank you.
That's all good. Um, and I think that is something that, writers, songwriters all need to remember is don't throw stuff away. Hang on to it. And it's okay if it just sits there for a while and either is brought back to life or remastered later or reimagined later. I mean, because you didn't let it go, you let it you know, sit for a while. So, I mean, is that something you would recommend, that people are patient with their work?
Oh, absolutely. Never throw any idea away,
Yeah.
ever. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to be a bit of a pack rat, and you better have a lot of computer space or be good at organizing your
Right.
ideas,
Hmm.
right? Because that's the way it's been all my life, right? I've got boxes and boxes of different story ideas and videos and games and all kinds of silly stuff throughout the years, right? Some that you may never touch, but that's okay
Yeah.
because that's all part of the process,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And speak to the people. A lot of the target here are independent artists, people doing stuff on the side. Maybe that's more their passion, but I would like you to speak to that. You said, well, I've got to work too. So not everybody gets to be paid by their super passion or their project that they have in front of them right then. So how do you manage to make all of that work?
Um, well, I used to run another facility that wasn't mine. It was a graphic, it was marketing facility, and there
Mhm.
was a lot of students that were working in there, and they would have these because they were really struggling. They were designing stuff for clients, and they were getting mad because they weren't agreeing with what the clients wanted.
Oh,
And I'm like, just breathe, right? Because this you have to learn to kind of compartmentalize between the two, separate the two, your work life versus your passion. Like, do what the client wants, make them
mhm.
happy, get paid, right? And then when 5 o'clock, when you're finished, you go home, do what you like,
Yeah.
right? Do the things that make you happy and so forth. Now, if you're lucky enough to be able to do something for a living that you actually enjoy, which I'll admit I am. Okay, I love my job. I love what I do. Is it perfect all the time? No, but I mean, it is what it is. But nonetheless, this is the kind of thing that if you're creative, if you're lucky enough to be in that industry, then embrace it. Try to separate the two so that you can enjoy your client relationships as well as your personal projects, because you never know. Over time, they will tend to mesh, which is what ended up happening to me over the years, right? Because I ended
Mhm.
up in the corporate world. I still am
Mhm.
today, but the thing that I was telling you about earlier about being involved in the arts, being involved in computers, and being involved in essentially business administration, they all kind of merged into one where I am today. So if anybody's listening and they're interested in that sort of thing, that's the advice I would give to them: is just keep going, and eventually the path will find you.
Okay. So will we get more songs like Fly coming out soon? Because you said it took longer than you expected. Will you do it again?
That's a hard question to answer. The short answer is yeah. There's at least one more, because um, when I was developing the track, there was more to it, but the track was getting too complicated, and it was kind of veering away from AOR, which is album oriented rock, for anyone who wants to know, to more progressive rock. There are progressive rock elements in that track, but I tried to keep it down to a minimum, right? So there was basically another component to the track, and it would have made the track like another minute or a minute and a half too long, and
Mm,
more complex and more radio like.
okay.
So I took it out, and what I'm going to do with it is, I've already started working on it. Is the track is called Pre-Flight, and it is essentially a 60-second track.
Ah,
The best example I can give you is in the late 70s and in the early 80s, there were bands like what do you call it, Van Halen, where they did You Really Got Me, and then the prior one was Eruption. They have that small Eruption piece, and the same thing with Queen with We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. So that was quite common in back then, a lot of stuff like that. So I'm going to do something similar and turn Pre-Flight into a companion track for
oh,
Fly.
neat.
Yeah,
Neat.
right.
Hope you'll
So
share it when it's done. Talk a little bit about your process when it comes to getting a song put together. What's it like for you? Or do you start by taking notes, or do you dedicate an hour? How's it work for
uh,
you?
it it depends on how the idea started. Most of the time, like these days, I have written other things. Like I have composed other tracks, but mostly for for corporate use, to be honest, right? Because
Okay.
I'm, because I'm also involved in film editing and stuff
Oh,
like
neat.
that. So when I'm putting together pieces for clients, it's like sometimes I know I need a melody or this or that, and it's probably easier for me to just make it than to try and go onto a website and try to find the clip that I'm looking for. So I'll do that sort of stuff. And so when I'm doing that, I'll just basically sit in front of the piano, this basically a MIDI keyboard, and just start playing notes and try to figure out things and see if I can find a melody that works for that particular project. In other cases, if I'm just playing in front of the keyboard, if now you're just kind of experimenting, right?
Mhm.
And if you hear something that you like, record it, right? And so that's usually how it starts, right? When you're trying to create an actual full length piece. There is one other one that I released in 2018. It's a completely different track. It's an EDM trance
Oh,
track,
okay. Yeah.
right? Again, it was one of those that helps to answer your question. I was just sitting in front of the keyboard and I was goofing around with these different sounds, and I like trance. So I started experimenting with that as well. And I was like, oh, this is not bad. So I ended up recording that one. That one didn't take so long. That one only took 3 days
Oh, wow.
to put
Yeah.
together. And so my plan was to use it for business promotion, like make videos and promote my agency and stuff like that. But I thought it was good enough. So I did release it on iTunes and that. So it's out there somewhere. And but that's how that piece started. Was I was just experimenting. I was late. It was like on a Friday, and it was like late on Sunday, and I had a finished piece.
Has that been your fastest music project like that?
For that kind of one, yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
other ones, if I'm doing things for film, I can usually turn it around in a couple of hours because
Oh,
I know
wow.
what I need and it doesn't have to be very long. But that was a 6 minute trance track. But I kind of flew through it because trance is different.
Mhm.
Trance is you're basically coming up with a melody and you're building up a pattern, and then you're building up the progressions. And if you listen to trance, that's basically how it works. Then there's kind of a slow period, then a rebuild, and then a finale. So I was able to throw that together relatively fast, if you want to call 3 days fast. Certainly faster than 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
When you put your music out, do you do a lot of promoting and marketing, or is it just more fun for you and whatever happens, happens?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. That was probably the thing I was looking forward to the most.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when the track was done, I'm like, okay, it's finished, and that was satisfying in itself, right? But I'm a marketing guy,
Ah,
so for me, this was like, okay, then, right?
yeah.
Let's have some fun with it, and that's been. I released it in the track was released in late November,
Hmm.
and I've been basically promoting it ever since. Right, so every night just submitting it to radio stations and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. Because if you're an independent music artist, that's something you need to remember, that there's a ton of opportunity out there to send this information out for free, right? Like, because there are paid services if you want to use them, that's fine, and I may consider that as well. But for now, I've had a lot of luck. I got to meet you, and we're talking. All these methods of submitting, and Google's your friend, Twitter's your friend, all that kind of stuff to get the material out there. And then from there, you just have fun stuff like, I don't know if you can see this, my mug.
Yes. Did you do the artwork?
Yeah, I did.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the artwork. Go ahead.
What other marketing tip would you give to indie artists? Because a lot of artists, actually everybody tends to get hung up on the marketing. We get overwhelmed with marketing. So what are some other takeaways that you can offer real quick that we should be doing?
Um, as I said, I always go with the approach, because this is not the first time that question's come up. And the first thing I try to do is try to get them to avoid to spend money, because a lot of them don't have the money to spend, and
Hmm.
that's what puts them off, right? It's just
Yes.
like, all you got to do, and most of the time, as I said, I'm busy during the day. I'm doing my job, but sometimes my wife and I were sitting and we're watching TV, and TV's on. That's fine. Well, I got my iPad in front of me. Rather than just sitting at a TV or watching a hockey game, which is like just staring at it for 3 hours, I'm basically looking down at my iPad while the stuff is on, and I start looking around for the various ways to promote it, because they're all looking for that kind of stuff. If whatever city you're from, contact them, contact the newspaper, contact, like,
Mhm.
because they're interested in local stories and it
Mhm.
won't cost you anything, right?
Mhm.
Contact local community radio stations, same kind of thing, because they'll get it out there. There you can get free, you can get your stuff published as a press release. And I can provide that information later if you want it, but it's essentially doesn't cost anything. They basically create the press release for you. They'll want money if they want it, if you want to distribute it. But the fact that it's live on the internet forever and you can use it and kind of go from there. Um, Other things to remember if you're going to do it is be involved in social,
Mhm.
right? Just in it again, that doesn't cost you anything either. Just to be friendly and say hi and chat with people and make friends and that kind of thing, and kind of go from there.
Cool. Great. Okay. Finish telling me about the logo. Was there more to that you were going to talk about? I didn't mean
Oh
to cut
yeah.
you off a minute ago.
Well, the logo again, that probably gets back to the multimedia question you were asking earlier, right?
Yeah.
So, and the marketing question, because okay, so now I've got this finished track, it's mine, right? So we need to get it out there. So I'm gonna create the packaging for it. So in this case, the artwork was again mimicking that '80s aesthetic, right? So there was you think about Journey album covers and Boston and Asian, they're all paintings, they're all that kind of thing. And I didn't want to obviously spend and invest a huge amount of time in creating a full blown painting, but I basically created it all. I used the white background because I figured it's going to look great on T-shirts and mugs and things like that.
Yeah.
But again, that look and feel of the artwork was designed that way. So again, it kind of it reminds the person of that '80s look. And it's for anyone that's listening that understands the technical side of it. It's all built in Illustrator. It's all vector,
Ah, yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'll allow you to do just about anything you want with it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. What else do we need to know, Phil?
Um, just listen to the track.
Yeah.
Right. That's about it. I mean, it's out there. It's available worldwide. For those that are not sure how to do something like that, it's easier than you think. Once you have the track done, I would recommend that they invest a little bit of money in a what do you call it, audio engineer. Get it mixed and mastered. It doesn't cost that much to do, and then you end up with a master file. Then go to a company like TuneCore, which they'll charge you all but $11 to register the track and
Hmm.
distribute it for you worldwide.
That's a
Right?
nice tip. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Great.
I mean that's all there is to it. Once it's out there, then that's it. Then it's up to you to let people know that it's there and get
Yeah.
people to listen to it.
And you can always submit to Run Radio. So anytime you've got more, you send it our way and come back when you have that next track ready. Thanks for spending some time with me.
Oh, thank you.